There are mothers who bury their children and are told it was karmic. There are raped women who hear they attracted that from another life. There are children born with cancer who are called indebted spirits.
This is not spirituality. This is torture disguised as doctrine. The belief that the soul reincarnates has become a moral alibi for everything humanity does not want to face. Injustice, pain, cruelty, and chaos. It is a convenient idea, not for those who suffer, but for those who want to explain suffering without taking responsibility. They say the soul returns to learn. But who is learning when a child is abused at 3 years old? Who is evolving when someone is born and dies in misery without ever having known dignity? The truth, raw and relentless, is that the soul does not reincarnate. Whoever told you otherwise deceived you, or was also deceived. Because what returns is not the soul, it is the psychic trash you have not yet burned. And the more you believe in this recycling of suffering called spiritual evolution, the further you get from your true soul, the one that never entered this game. Now, the question no one wants to ask. If the soul does not reincarnate, who is living your next life now? Some people die thinking they will return. They will not. Others spend their lives believing they have been here before. They never were. This is the best told lie in human spiritual history because it smells like justice, tastes like hope, and looks like wisdom, but it is just an error repeated for centuries until it became dogma. Reincarnation, in the way it is sold, never existed in serious traditions. Not like this. Not as a rotating shift of souls learning lessons in a planetary school. The modern concept of reincarnation does not come from India, or Egypt, or Greece. It comes from a poorly digested fusion between French Kardisism, popular spiritualism, and 19th century European parlor esotericism. It was adapted, diluted, romanticized, and then exported as universal truth. But Andrés Yañez dissects it with a precise phrase: it is not the soul that returns, but the inertia of unconsciousness. What survives is not the self, it is the residues. They are unresolved emotions, obsessions, mental patterns, not the living, integral consciousness you call the soul. The soul, according to authentic esoteric teachings, is unique, sacred, non-transferable. It does not return because it never fell into the cycle. What transmigrates are fragments, pieces of personality, shadow, unconscious content, which adhere to new psychic vehicles like viruses seeking a host. The popular belief in reincarnation is like a religion with a falsified manual. It comforts, but it does not liberate. It says suffering has a purpose, but it makes you accept injustice as learning. It says the evil you live today was chosen by you, but it does not show who that you is who supposedly chose to be born an orphan, raped, or enslaved. Why doesn't it show it? Because it cannot. It cannot. Because it is a lie. And this is where everything changes, when you understand that this reincarnation is just the repetition of the error and not the soul's journey. Yañez writes with brutal clarity, "The soul does not enter the cycle. It is the cycle that spins around the absence of the soul. We are not evolving through lives. We are being crushed by the same pattern. A blind machine that recycles traumas and delivers the result packaged as spiritual progress. It is easy to sell hope. It is difficult to face spiritual reality seriously. This is the start of a deep, necessary, fine cut. People trapped in a cell they call a temple. People surrounded by invisible bars they mistake for light. And the worst, they give thanks for being there. This is the most perverse trick of the modern spiritual system. It does not control you with fear. It controls you with hope. The idea that you chose everything before you were born is one of the most effective weapons of psychological control ever created. It convinces the victim to blame themselves for being a victim, to passively accept the pain, to not react, to not break. When you believe that every misery is part of a cosmic lesson, you stop fighting suffering and start defending it. This is the spiritual matrix. It is not made of technology, but of emotionally manipulative doctrine. Andrés Yañez is direct. The soul does not learn with suffering. The one who learns with suffering is the ego, and sometimes, not even that. The so-called law of karma, in the way it is disseminated, is not a law. It is an argument. An argument constructed to explain chaos morally. But chaos is not explained with morality. If a baby is born with a terminal syndrome and dies without seeing the sun, that is not karmic rescue. It is tragedy. And the attempt to give it meaning with cheap spiritual theories is a double violence, against the truth and against the one who suffers. It is not spirituality. It is rationalization of the absurd. Yañez shows that the true spiritual process does not happen with repetitions, but with rupture. The soul only manifests when you break the repetition, not when you accept it as part of a plan. The so-called past life regressions, the accounts of memories, and the supposed healings through karmic narrative are psychic experiences, yes, but they are not proof of reincarnation. They are mental productions, often fueled by suggestion, desire, lack, trauma, and the need for meaning. The lower mind is a theater with a mystical stage, writes Yañez. It imitates the spiritual with the material of its own debris. The soul, the real one, does not need to repeat roles. It does not return as an actor in a new play. It does not participate in the theater. Repetition is not evolution. It is prison, and while you think you are ascending, you may be turning in the same spot, trapped in a cycle you call destiny, but which was never yours. Most people do not want spiritual truth. They want consolation with esoteric aesthetics. Accepting that the soul reincarnates is easy. It seems logical. It seems fair. It seems beautiful. The difficult thing is to face that almost everything we call soul is just husks, psychic fragments, memory traces, residual impulses. The concept of transmigration, as taught in real initiatory schools, is not romantic. It is hard, uncomfortable, cutting. The superior self is not rebuilt by repetitions, says Andrés Yañez. It is affirmed by rupture, by verticality. What transmigrates is not the soul in the full sense. What transmigrates are, remains, emotional residues, unfinished psychic formations, parts of the human machine that continue to exist by inertia and gravity. The common human being is not a spiritual unity. They are a set of unstable, fleeting, recyclable selves. These parts can indeed reincarnate. They can indeed attach themselves to new bodies. But that is not evolution. It is cyclical decay. It is not the return of the soul. It is the perpetuation of the error. The oldest traditions knew this. In Egypt, in Pythagoreanism, in Gnosis, transmigration was seen as something inferior, as spiritual punishment, not as progress. Returning to matter was not a blessing, it was a defeat. This is the most dangerous inversion of spiritual modernity, transforming exile into a mission. Saying you are here to evolve is much more comfortable than accepting that you might be here because you have not yet managed to leave. Yañez is emphatic. The true self does not inhabit the horizontal world of time. It is vertical and does not descend. It calls to the real soul. It is a fixed point outside of time. It does not move. It attracts. Only those who silence the machine of repetition, who stop circling around themselves and ascend, can access that point. And ascending is not dying. It is dying before you die. Transmigration, in this context, is not a journey of self-knowledge. It is recycling debris. It is the universe attempting to reuse what was left of you. You are not returning to learn to love. You are being reused because you have not yet become whole. The one who has a soul, in fact, only needs to live once, and make that the end of all cycles. It is not uncommon for someone to leave a regression session crying, swearing they saw their own murder in a past life. But when analyzed scientifically, What appears is not a past life. It is a brain desperately trying to give shape to chaos. Modern spirituality did not understand the enemy. The enemy is not evil. It is fantasy with a logical structure. The human mind, when suffering, does not just seek relief, it seeks a plot. And when the trauma has no meaning, it creates one. Spiritual regression, unfiltered, is often that. Creation, not of the soul, but of the traumatized unconscious, fed by millennia of symbolic culture. The psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades demonstrating that false memories can be implanted with astonishing ease. A simple script of words, with emotional repetition, is capable of convincing a person that they lived something that never happened. The brain fills in the gaps with narratives that fit emotionally, and when that narrative comes with a mystical aura, soft music, and celestial language, resistance drops. Yañez addresses this directly. What they call past life memory is in most cases the confusion between desire, fear, and suggestion. What does this mean in practice? It means that a large part of the memories of other lives are symbolic creations based on unresolved traumas in this life. And the more pain a person feels, the more tendency they have to seek mystical explanations that offer meaning and redemption. But the soul does not operate by narrative. It is not concerned with assembling biographies. It does not need that. The one who wants to remember past lives is the wounded ego. It is the emotional system trying to transform suffering into a mission, failure into karma, and helplessness into purpose. This is not spirituality. It is emotional survival with metaphysical aesthetics. Memory is the soul's prison, and the more you try to remember, the less you are. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Memory is not a file, it is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you recreate it based on the now. That is, the more times you access a memory, the further away from the truth it gets. The so-called proof of reincarnation through memories is, therefore, a paradox. The more you insist on remembering, the less reliable the memory becomes, and the more emotionally intense it is, the greater the possibility that it is fabricated. It is not the soul speaking in those moments. It is the desire to find meaning in a world where the absurd reigns. You do not have time. You will not have another chance. What you do with your consciousness now decides whether it ascends or dissolves. The illusion of reincarnation creates a devastating effect. It convinces you that you have infinite lives to make mistakes, try again, and postpone the essential. But no one told you that spiritual time is neither linear nor infinite. It is decision, and an undelivered decision is a disappearing staircase. The true soul, as Yañez says, does not return because it does not mix. It is vertical. It either ascends or falls, but it never spins. You are not in a game of spiritual phases. You are in an abyss where you either build a bridge or fall into oblivion. Most people who say, "I believe in reincarnation," are only trying to cushion the anguish of not knowing who they are. The discourse of evolution through lives is just a disguise for the lack of direction. Whoever seeks the soul seriously, directly, radically, no longer wants to return. They no longer accept spinning. They no longer have a vocation for the cycle. The soul has no vocation for the eternal return. It has a vocation for the vertical. And here is what they never told you. Reincarnation only exists for those without a formed soul. The rest are reabsorbed by the earth, descend, switch off. The true liberation is raw. Either you form your soul now, or you disappear. The soul is not in you. It is beyond you, but it awaits you. Yañez's shock. You are not a soul. You are what the soul can come to inhabit. And if you do not become worthy of it, you live and die as a tenant, never as a being. There is no reincarnation. There is only the urgency of awakening, while there is still body, breath, and spark. While the majority flees to past and future lives, the real work is here, in the silence of attention, in the discipline of consciousness, in the courage to say no to spiritual comfort. The soul does not want another chance. It wants you to deserve it. Now, you have come this far because something inside you already knows. It knows that easy answers can no longer be accepted. It knows that something much bigger than past lives is at stake. You feel, even if you cannot explain it, that the story of reincarnation comforts but does not liberate, and that the truth, however hard, is the only path to a living soul. This video was not made to please. It was made to cut, to open space where before there was only repetition. If this content touched you in some way, if it made sense, if it provoked, unsettled, or strengthened you, please know that just by being here, watching, you are already helping. You are already part of a movement of rare consciousness, in a time when most only want distraction. But if you want to go further, if you want to support this work more directly, there are two paths. You can become a channel member and, with that, participate in exclusive content, internal discussions, early access to videos, and a space where the search is taken seriously. Or you can use the super thanks feature below as a way of saying, "This made a difference for me." And yes, believe me, it makes a difference to us too. None of this is mandatory. You do not need to pay to belong, but if you can and want to contribute from the heart, this is how we keep this space alive, authentic, and free from constraints. Sharing the video, commenting, sending it to someone who is ready to listen, all of this is also real support. All of this also builds. Thank you for being here, for listening with the soul, for being part of this. The search is solitary, but it does not have to be silent. See you in the next video.